Hi, it's Gadget UK here again. This is a repair I've been meaning to do for quite a while actually. PC Engine Core Grafx 2, nice orange logo there. You can see it's really dirty, this, and pretty beat up. You'd consider that as junk, and it's kind of behaving in a junky kind of way actually. If I just point you with the screen. Now I've tested this with U-cards and it's doing the same thing, graphical issue. Now I know it's a graphical issue. If I press start, just listen, this should load the last game that I think was booted on this. So I'm currently connected with the SD System 3 here, Super SD System 3, and you'll see we've got graphical issues. Now if I press start, that may work, it may do nothing. So I mean, it could be the HUC 6280 CPU or the HUC 6270 GPU. We're getting video output, so I would assume the DAC's okay. And if I press the select button, just listen. So that's not the normal sound you would get, but we're getting some sound there. And you can press up and down on the direction pad there. I think we'll start by just tearing this down actually and have a look inside. So game bit adapter needed for this. It's the same size as an N64, SNES, Mega Drive carts, etc. Someone's been inside this before because these came out super easy. It's interesting, it's got a mark there, 13th of the 3rd, 2017, OK. And this is different compared to the standard PC Engine. See these little ball bearings here to make a ground connection. It's quite nice, and it says Ext bus. I'm not sure it said that on the original one there. These have also got a DIN on the side here, so nice for getting composite out of. So let's just pull the lid off. Oh, the shielding's on the bottom there, but look at that corrosion. Good God, we might be lucky at this. It might just be some sort of corrosion issue. If they've got that much rust there, that would suggest some moisture's got into the board at some point. You can see what looks like flux or something down here, but I don't really see any immediate signs of concern anywhere there. The moisture just seems to be inside the case. So I mean, I'll inspect, you know, with a magnifier here, up close on both sides, have a good look around the board, see if I can see any issues. I don't find any immediate problems there. It's very strange how there would be so much corrosion here but very little on the board. I mean, it could be it's just coming from the underneath or something here. But I mean, you can see, you know, something's been affecting the local area within here. There's mucky marks and stuff all over the thing. It's very dirty. And down here, can you see, just around these VRAMs, it's very dirty, dirty around these chips. So I think in the first instance, I'm just going to go over with the cotton bud actually into my IPA. And you might not be able to see very well, but the pin here, it might be the ground pin, on both of these VRAMs is super dark. It's like really dark grey, like something's started to corrode those. But all the other pins look okay, and I think this is just flux. I think this yellow sort of browny colour to the board here is just flux. So I'll go around with the IPA cotton buds and clean it all up and just see what difference that makes. I might then try just quickly reflow these because it's super easy to do. The connections here look okay, but there is a lot of that flux or whatever it is around all three chips actually. So you can see all I'm doing here is just going over these areas with the cotton bud, some IPA, and you can see that browny yellow stuff, which I think is flux actually. It's coming off, but it might not be because it's, you know, it's all over the connector and stuff. You can't quite see this, but it's all over there as well as like yellow and browny stuff over the whole lot. So maybe something has got onto the board. So I cleaned up around these four chips here. I've not touched the CPU yet. I think the other thing I'm going to do is just remove this piece of shielding, because you can see the bit of corrosion there, and it's just a bit dust discoloured up here. Just need these components, and look here, we've got some corrosion there. I can't see any damage around there, but I want to clean up that whole area there. Just check the expansion, the top of the expansion connector, clean up all around here, just brush that down and have an inspection under here. So I'm going to need to heat up these solder points here, I think, and then this should come off, this piece of shielding here. Big blob over there as well, and just so I can get a better look at the board. So all I'm going to do here is just heat these points up and use the solder sucker actually to remove the excess solder. So just try and get this side off. Yeah, there we go, that's lifting off. Yeah, so that's that off, so at least I can now get some IPA on here and clean up this area here. There's some wires here that could be affected, because you can see it's a bit discoloured. There could be some contamination between these resistors, and I don't know how well it's going to show up. I think it looks okay from the viewfinder. You can see those look a bit dark, those pins there. So I'll get some flux on there, reflow those, but you know, just get some IPA and toothbrush this whole area here. Maybe get the fiberglass pen onto this here, and just inspect. So just using the fiberglass pen here, and we'll just have a bit of a brush around this area. I'm not really. I'm thinking that probably has nothing to do with the issue at all. To be fair, it's more likely if there was something like that, it's going to be something to do with the connections around here. But I think there's going to be a fault. I think it's going to be a faulty chip. Certainly behaving that way. Well, you know what they say about inspection. I was inspecting the back of the system here, and you might not be able to see very well. That pin down there is just bent ever so slightly, and if you look at the inside here, you might be able to see this a bit more clearly. Can you see what's going on here? The pin has been pushed back and it's shorting on one of these outer pins, or both of those outer pins there. So that's the first issue with this. I need to pull that pin out and straighten it. Yeah, so I know what the fault is with this straight away. The regulator's getting red hot. That chip there is so hot you can't even touch it. The CPU and the DAC are stone cold. So we've got a fault over here with the GPU. God, that's red hot. Yeah, they're alright. It's just that chip. It's incredibly hot. So what we don't really know at this stage is whether that GPU failure has caused any of the faults on this, because you know it was so hot you couldn't even touch it, incredibly hot. So you know it could have taken out something else when you've got that level of short, although it could just be the supply rails in there and that's pulling the voltage down, you know, so might be alright. It depends how it's failed, you know, where the short actually is. So I'll get the hot air rework onto this, and we'll remove that, and I'm going to try it without the GPU and just see what sort of behaviour would go. So I came off there with some hot air, 350 degrees, just for a minute or two. Well, I would say 2 or 3 minutes actually. I did preheat the board underneath about 100 degrees just for a minute or two first. That does actually help. It looks okay. I'm not sure if we've got some corrosion get on there to start with actually. So the next thing I'm going to do is get some flux and use the solder braid there just to clean up the pads. I've shown techniques before in previous PC Engine videos, so it's nothing really to see. But if you want to see how to do that, I'll post a link down below in the description to this video to that video, so you can see how to remove one of these and how to replace it. So there we go. That's after cleaning with some of the solder braid and flux. Well, I'll just clean up with a bit of IPA, and then I'm just curious to connect this back up and just see how it's behaving. If I could hear sound, you know, normal sound, that would make me have a high level of confidence that the DAC and the CPU and these two VRAMs down here are probably okay, although the VRAMs are not connected up to anything at the moment, so that's not really an indication of anything, but certainly the CPU and the DAC. So there we go, all cleaned up. I will now test it without a GPU. In theory it should work, we should get some sound hopefully. So anyone working on one of these should have a copy of Space Harrier. I'll show you why. This is one of the few games where if you've got no GPU, the game music will start. So that's normal behaviour there, because the DAC has got no data bus connection to the GPU. There's nothing coming across there. But the main thing is we can hear that music that shows the CPU's booting. You know, it's running some code from the cart there. It's utilising the WRAM and started, you know, initialised the sound engine there. We've got that intro sound. So that's a good sign. It is just the GPU then that's faulty on this. I mean, we may have a secondary, you know, the VRAM may have gone bad. as a result of that failure of the GPU there, but I think it's unlikely. It probably just needs HU6270. So I'll just show you briefly what I've been doing here. You see these two large areas of the PCB here? You've got a connection that goes from there to this pad and down to here. That's the VCC rail, and I know that because VCC on these 62256 chips is the corner points up here. I think that was ground. VCC's over here. So you can test from there and from there, and you get a short. I'll see if I can show you that actually. Just measure from one of the corner points there to, I think, this side. Let's put the meter on continuity. Yeah, so we've got a short there, and from the other one over here, no short at the moment. We should have a short to this one there. So your VCC and ground are here on these pads, going to 2 pins on this side, 2 pins on that side. So all I've done is just measure. Just point you over here a little bit. Just flip the chip around this way. So I counted, I think it's 10 pins in from the right hand side here to one of them, and 7 pins from the left hand side. And measure on resistance, and I get about 165 ohms. This is a working chip that I tested previously on a previous video, and there's no resistance whatsoever between those pins on that chip. So this is why it was getting super hot. Internally we've got a short across the supply. Something's failed in there. It could be anything really, but yeah, something's failed in there. And we've got a short across the supply rails, which is why it's cooking. So I think what we'll do next is get this one on there. Always make sure your pins are flat on a chip like this. So get it on a flat surface. Use a ruler or something just to push down each side of the chip here, just to flatten the pins. But they've been done before, and then just inspect with a magnifier just to make sure all those pins are super straight there. As you can see, they're pretty good actually. It should be pretty easy to apply that. Get some flux on the board here. Hold it in position, inspect, make sure it's aligned correctly. You've got pin 1 the right way around and stuff, and all the pins on all sides are all aligned properly. And then just try and gently hold it down, just solder 1 pin, re-inspect it. As soon as it's, you're convinced it's absolutely straight and everything looks, the pins are as flat as they possibly can be, do one on the opposite corner, re-inspect again, and then just do some drag solder. As long as you've got some good flux, like some chip quick flux like I use, it should be a breeze putting it on there. So I'll see if I can show you this. I'm just about to solder. I haven't soldered a single pin on this. You just need to make sure, let's say you've got it totally aligned properly. Sorry, the light's not great in here. I might have moved it just by wobbling the thing around here, but yeah, you've got to make sure that all the pins on all 4 sides here are aligned perfectly. And all I'm going to do is just, let's say, solder, get a little bit of flux into one corner, and just let the solder flow onto 1 pin, re-inspect, do the same diagonally opposite. Yeah, so the key here is to just try and get a bit of flux like that. Got way too much on, but that will assist. And try not to touch the chip. Get some solder onto the tip of the iron here, and just gently touch the pad. And the solder, there you go, should flow. That's flowed to the pin, and just inspect. And at this point, something else I usually do is, as well as inspecting, I've anchored it on 2 corners here, as well as inspecting, just if you get any pins on the edges that are just slightly off, just use a very small screwdriver, just touch the pin, just move it a tiny bit until they all look perfectly straight. Move any that are kind of bent out of position just so that they're totally straight on the pad, but those all look good now. So we can just, push it down a little bit as we solder. Perhaps to this side first, get a bit of flux on here, try and distribute this, should be enough. And just do a little bit of drag soldering. Let me just clean this up. Yeah, I'm not sure how much of this is going to get obscured by the camera, by the angle I'm at here. It's pretty difficult to film this. I'll try and move the iron around this way. Hopefully you'll still be able to see what I'm doing here. Some more solder. And you can do the whole dab thing like this, or you can drag into them. You can see we're getting loads of extra solder there. It really isn't a problem. I can get that off with some desolder braid in a minute. Yeah, so we've got a large blob there. I tell you what, let's just get a tiny bit more flux down there. See if that'll come off with just flux. Actually, just clean the tip. Hopefully you can still see this. Yeah, you can see it's a bit better. I need to get the solder rail onto that a little bit. So again, I'm coming in from a strange angle here, so it's not that easy for me to do this, but hopefully you can just about see what I'm doing here. I'll just touch the solder braid gently there. That's it. And a little bit more flux into there, and a little bit of solder. Yeah, and just inspect to make sure you've got good solder points, but those don't look too bad for a first pass actually. So there we go, still loads of flux around there, I need to clean that off, so I'll do that next. We'll let it cool down a bit because it's still a bit warm from soldering, but it's only taken about a minute to do that. They are very easy to solder, they're harder to get off, you know, it just takes 2 or 3 minutes, let's say, with hot air. That's my last one, and the place I got these from previously has no longer got any of these in stock. So, I mean, you could argue, you know, I might have been better off just keeping this for spares, this board, you know, because I could have just took the CPU and the DAC off there and the RAM and used it as a spare. But then again, I've got that spare chip. You know, if I ever have a fault on one of my other PC engines, I can always just use this system as a replacement, and I think when we clean this shell up it should come up pretty good actually. So I think it was worth the investment here, and this is one of the ones that's got, as I showed earlier, it's got the DIN on the side there. Sorry, the line's awful in here at the moment. So we're all cleaned up. I'm going to go plug it in and let's see what happens. So I got it on some ESD safe plastic here. Now before I do anything, so it's nice and cool now, before I do anything I'm going to power it up this way with no gaming, with nothing connected to it. Just make sure that chip doesn't get super hot instantly, and it isn't doing. I don't feel anything, no temperature whatsoever, so that's a good sign. We don't have the short we had before. So I've connected to the Super SD System 3. The interesting thing here, can you see, we've got like a white background. So I don't know whether it's done some damage to the DAC actually. That's a bit strange. I mean, it could be that the GPU is not completely soldered on properly, maybe one pin missing or something, it's not quite right there, but that is very interesting. I've never seen that before with a different coloured background. So we'll connect the controller up. I'll just try that, do it while it's off. I never like plugging these things in while it's on because you could damage the CPU that way. Switch it on, we'll try and start it and let's just see what happens. I mean, the sound's okay there now, aside from that white background. Yeah, that's not working, is it? Oh, it is working. We're just not seeing anything on the screen. Oh, here we are. Now we've got a black background. Isn't that strange? Palette problem, can you see that? Yeah, I think there's a palette problem there. That's supposed to be white text and it seems to be inverted. Let's start it. It's a very curious behaviour we've got there. I mean, that seems okay, but I do think we've got a problem with transparencies or something. Are those colours normal? I'm not sure. Well, it does stand to reason that something's gone wrong with the GPU. Maybe it's as hot as it was. It could have taken out the DAC there. Yeah, let's try another game. Let's go back to the menu. It's really strange though. I've never seen that before. Let's try Lords of Thunder. Yeah, very strange. Yeah, I'm sure there's supposed to be more colour there than that. I wonder if one of those rams has gone. If one of the rams had gone though, you would think that the sprites will be messed up rather than the colour. But I suspect we're lacking some colour there. You know, we're getting lots of black silhouettes of things, which is a bit odd. Which would make me think that's not the DAC, unless the DAC handles some of the palette stuff. I don't know. Let's hit start. What I should really be doing is testing some games where I know exactly what the screen looks like. Yeah, that's not right. That's weird, isn't it? It's like we're lacking colour completely. It's like there's no colour at all. But you know, that could be a RAM fault. It's weird though, because there's colour there. It's like colour on sprites. Yeah, so look at her face. There is a chance that the GPU I'm using here is not a good GPU actually. That is a possibility. Because when I originally tested it, it was tested very briefly with only, I think, 1 or 2 games. Let's just see what Space Harry looks like, because that was one of the games I think I tested it with last time. Yeah, you see, I'm pretty sure when we tested this GPU in a previous video, we didn't have black text down here. So, yeah, and look, you see black sprites, so there's clearly something weird going on there somewhere. The good news is, I give it another reflow, and I reflowed the SRAMs as well, and as you can see, that's looking a lot more normal. So I'm not sure where the bad connection was. I mean, the chip looked fine actually. I'm sure it wasn't the soldering I just did, but there were a few like really dull grey looking connections, certainly on the corner points of those SRAMs. So I'm wondering if one of those is the issue. Let's start that game again. But I mean, it's looking normal already. You know, the colours normal there. Let's see what it looks like here, because I think we were just getting like black silhouette. There you go, got colour back. Sweet. So yeah, consider that one a success, I think. So apologies, it's really dark in here, but as you can see, the next port of call is to clean up that rust there. The plastic thing here, you just need to cut there's like a little plastic blob that's melted over the top, and then you can separate the clear piece here from the top. If I pull this out, you need to break these plastic things here, I think, you know, because there's ball bearings underneath. So I think all I'm interested in really is just dealing with the corrosion on this side here. I'm not too worried about the underside, it should be alright. It would be foolish to not clean on the underside of here, so I've just snipped off those 2 plastic bits there, and then we can pull this out and clean on the underside. I mean, it's not too bad actually, I didn't need to do that, as you can see. Yeah, those ball bearing things that hang out from the underside are just held in with springs. You'll be able to see this a bit better in the daylight tomorrow. So here's a better look at the board in the daylight. It's looking a lot cleaner now. So you know, you can see, replace that chip and reflowed all around there. I'm just looking at the shielding here. Sorry, I zoomed in way too close there. Zoom you out. So you can see on this side here, I've cleaned up. It's you know, most of the red rust has come off there. It was very, very red. Are you woofing? And you can see how red the rust was actually, because I need to do the underside there. There we go, so that's a gentle wipe down with some WD-40. I'll go over that again later before I reassemble it, but most of the corrosion's off, you know. It looks a mess, there's not a lot you can do with that. You could get some rust remover or something to treat that. But generally, once you've cleaned it up and got some oil or something over it, just, you know, solvent of some sort, it generally doesn't tend to come back. So in order to be able to wash the lid here, clean the lid, we need to remove this the slot here. So it's just these, I think, 3 screws here holding the slot to the case. And when you're turning these things upside down, make sure you do it on a soft surface. You've not got anything underneath that could scratch it. Because I've seen people in a few videos actually on hard sort of concrete or wooden surfaces with consoles upside down like this, scratching the front of the things. You want to protect them. So we can now get that into the sink. So here's a before. You can see just how dirty and how bad that is actually. It's horrendous. So the case is looking a lot cleaner. We've clearly got a few marks here that are just not going to come off. You know, it's like one of those little cable burns, you know, where a cable's like being pulled or, you know, tightly bound around it. You know, you could mistake it for soldering iron mark or something. I guess it could be from a cigarette or something like that. It's like a heat. They're very small though, they're thin. And the way that they're elongated like that makes me think it's been a cable wrapped around it. Someone pointed that out very early on one of my VIC-20 videos when I suggested it might have been touched by a soldering iron. But yeah, I think that's all that is. But yeah, I mean, I've not used the plastic cleaner or anything on this. It's just been in the sink, soap and water, washing powder, biological. The stuff that was in here was horrendous. It was like thick yellow browny sludge, and it wouldn't come out. It was an absolute nightmare trying to clean those vents out. But I think once I've got some plastic cleaner on it and stuff, it should come up pretty good. The main thing is, as long as you don't wash these too much, you know, soak them too long, serial numbers and things like that stay stuck on, and the print's okay, as you can see. It's only had about 10 minutes in the sink, that, and it's the same with this. You know, I've got the rust out the corners and things here, and it's come out pretty well. And again, still got the serial number on there, and it's still got that sticker there, although the ink on that one's worn a little bit, where it says 30th of the 3rd 2017 OK. So I think we'll start reassembling it. I'll get the metal shielding back in here, you know, put these little things in here, I'll show you those. And I kept the little bits of plastic I'd cut off there, and there's a reason for that. We can always just stick those bits of plastic back over, heat with the iron, and just try and get a little bit of a join there, just to try and you know, reassemble it the same way it came apart. Strictly speaking, you don't really need to use those two plastic things there. You know, the insides of the shell will all, you know, the case, will all, you know, it'll all just fit together without those. I might just give these a bit of a clean on the edge here, because it's still a bit dirty despite having been washed in the sink. So I've got those 4 ball bearing type things back into the little cavities there. I cleaned up the surfaces of those with fiberglass pen actually, and a bit of a wire brush. So the next thing we need to do is get the shielding back on. I think it goes that way around there. There's enough of a notch there to not require any of the additional plastic. You can see the few bits here that I saved when I cut them off. 3 separate little pieces. So what I can do when I come to do this one down here is, like I say, is just stick the little bits in a little pile on top of, so I'm not doing it very well here, stick the little bits in a pile on top of there, and then just try and melt them all together to just, you know, cover over the very edge there, and that should hold that all back in place. I've just realised I need to clean this, because can you see, that's super, it was making this look rusty. Yeah, that's super dirty as well, so I'll do that first. So all I'm going to do now is, as I described there, just hold that down, clean the tip. I will need to clean my tip thoroughly after this, and just melt this plastic down like this. That should do, I think. As you can see, the shielding is now held in by that. You know, you can press these, they're just held in by that bit of plastic on the inside. So with this one here, it doesn't protrude as much, so I'm going to stick a big piece of the plastic in there, actually, and we'll try and melt that over. Now, strictly speaking, the way this was assembled, this piece was on there, and then that overhung here. But, you know, you're not going to be able to do that without melting this. You know, it's all done with special machines and things in the factory. So the nearest we can get, or I can get, is to do it this way, I think. Yeah, like that. That's about as good as we're going to get. So now we've done that, one final thing I've just started to do here, and you can see the difference already, is on this support pillar, you know, this was the only place really that the rust was super hard to get off because of the shape of it. And I'm just using the fiberglass pen here to clean this up as good as it can possibly be. And a lot of that's coming off actually. The little bit that was still there is coming off this way. And I used the fiberglass pen on the underside of the PCB where this married up. And just make sure we get a really good join there, you know, electrically, because that's where it does join. I think it joins in the other corners as well, so it's not absolutely essential, but the more rust we get off there, the better, because that's the bit that touches the PCB. And again, before I actually join the board up in a sec, I'll just wipe that down with a cotton bud with some WD-40 just on that part here I'm just cleaning. But can you see the difference there? Can you see how much cleaner that is? Yeah, and we'll clean this ribbon up as well, because this is just pretty gross. It's got a horrible mark there. It's going to take a bit of time with some IPA to get all this off, but as you can see, it's coming off. Yeah, so still a little bit dirty there, but most of the muck's come off that. The rust thing there has come off, that's the main thing. So we just need to get these pieces back on now. I think that goes that way around. And we'll just get that screwed into the inside of here. So if you've got access to compressed air, I would recommend blowing the slot here from the back. If you've not got that, you can just blow yourself, which I've just done from the back here, because there was loads of fluff in the corners on both sides and you can't get it out. It's too difficult to get out. There's a little bit there still now I can see, so I might just have a go at getting rid of that, but the slot's pretty clear there now. This obviously needs cleaning up as well. It's really dirty, so I'll wipe that down. The easiest way to clean the actual slots on these is to take a U card, put a bit of IPA on the cart edge, and then stick it in and out of the slot a good 10-20 times. That is really the easiest way, because they're quite thin slots. I mean, you could fold some paper or card and push it in very carefully, you know, but you could damage the pins on this. It's the way it's assembled, it's super easy to bend them and stuff, so I wouldn't do that. Just, let's say, use a U card to help you do the cleaning. So, and the next thing we need to do is get this piece of shielding back in. So I would try and straighten this out a little bit. You know, if you've had to bend it a little bit as you've been getting it out, try and straighten it before you put it back on, and just make sure it's as flat as possible. I mean, it's not mega important really, because you're going to be able to sort of bend it and manipulate and stuff as you put it, you know, as you solder the points back in place. But the straighter it is before you start, the easier that work will be. Yeah, it's not too bad actually. It's fairly straight and uniform. Probably start with this corner point here. You know, you can only get it one way because it's got a gap here, and obviously it's got to get it the right way up, so the plastic is on the underside next to the PCB. But if I just gently touch this here with the iron, we should be able to get this corner to join back up again, I think. So that's the shielding back on. I cleaned up the bit of corrosion that was there. Cleaned up the corrosion there with a bit of wire brush and the fiberglass pen as well. You can see that's super clean. Bit of WD-40 just on those two areas. So I think we're ready to get the cartridge slot back into the lid now. There we go. That's the top half back on. So we can now just get it back in the case and screw it back together. I just need to just clean up this power switch here, and then I can just get the last 4 screws in. So the power switch goes on that way with the red thing to the side there, and then it should just be a case of sliding this into there like that, I think. Yeah, there we go. That's quite tight, but that's okay. So just get the screws in. And this is something I should have done at the start of this video. Thou shalt check voltages. So let's just check the input. 8.77. Now it's a 9-volt power supply I use. It's better to get nearer to 9 as possible, because you know you get less voltage drop. The regulator there will dump less heat into the heatsink. Yeah, so I've got a bit of voltage drop from 9 to 8.77. On pin 3 we got 4.99. So I really should have done that at the point where I felt the chip was overheating, because swapping chips and things out, you know, say we had 6 volts on here, we could have killed something else could have died, the replacement chip could have died. But yeah, that's a good check just before I screw the lid back on. Strictly speaking, if the regulator's overheated for any period of time, you might want to consider swapping the regulator out. You know, and there's lots of other alternatives to things like this now. Dave Curran's used those little recomp devices. Those are quite good. You can get one that's an equivalent package of a 7805. It's got the same 3 pins. They're a bit pricey. They're about £7 or £8 each, I think. You might be able to get them cheaper if you buy them direct from RS or Farnell or CPC or somewhere. Yeah, so there are alternative solutions, but as you can see, last look at the board before they got the lid back on here. Oh, there's a bit of flux there actually. I'll just give that one last clean. Can you see that? But the pins, you can see the soldering on there is pretty good, and these have been reflowed. I think the issue we had with the black and white thing was one of the pins on here, so I think what I'll do in a minute is just have a look at the schematics, see if we can work out what pin was being affected around here. We perhaps had one that, whilst they looked fine when I reflowed them, soldered the chip on, we had one point that was not making a good connection, I think. So the other thing I want to do here is leak some hot glue into just down there where those where that connection was bent on this side. And before the hot glue police jump up and down on this video and thumb it down and start proclaiming that this is not the sort of thing you should do, this is exactly the sort of thing you should do where you've had a damaged connection like that, where the connection's been pushed through. Other than replacing this connector, which is the preferable option, I can't imagine it's easy to find those. I mean, the Terra Onion team perhaps may know where to get something like that from. It is fairly standard, but it might not be with these plastic mounts and things, the plastic fittings here that are designed specifically for the PC Engine. But you need some way of securing that pin, because with insertion and removal of devices in here, it could, with a bit of time, push that pin back again, because it's weakened. It's come out of the plastic housing to start with, it's slid back. So yeah, we'll just get some hot glue in there. And it's like I say, there's no chance. It's not going to conduct. It's not going to create any problems. It's just absolutely essential to secure that pin moving forward. Actually, and you need to almost like press this on it, and then try and seep the glue into it like that. Fill that whole area inside it. There you go. So we've got quite a bit of hot glue there, but that's exactly what we need. So it looks a bit of a mess there, totally unorthodox, but that is exactly what that needs to secure that pin, so that when you, like say, you push things in there, it won't slide back. The key, like I say, is to get it to seep right in there. There's no risk. You could just peel that stuff back off again, and it's like I say, what damage is that going to cause moving forward? None, really. It's going to assist with that pin not slipping back, and it could well be that pin sliding back. I need to look at the pin outs to work out which one it is. We're dealing with these N3 here. It's almost like if I was to guess, I would think the middle pin there, I might just have a look on the pin outs in a minute. The middle pin has slid and shorted onto the end pin there. I'll perhaps just put some text up just to point out what that was, what we're shorting. I can always just cut off the excess here with some wire cuts once that's cooled down. Yeah, so I've cut off the excess bits there, but that's seeped right inside there where we want it, just to give the pins a bit of support when you push in, the Super SD System 3 or a CD unit or something in and out there. So whilst this is not black, it does make a difference actually, just getting some of this back to black on there, just because you get like white patches of the plastic where it's dried out stuff, and that just fixes that issue. And whilst the glossiness eventually wears off, those white patches don't come back, which is the key really. It just makes it look even all around. Yes, I think you'll agree that doesn't look bad actually. I'm pretty pleased with that. That's almost good as new. It's just a shame about that little mark there. If that mark wasn't there, other than the few minor scratches, I think you'd agree that that's pretty blooming good. So the interesting thing I'll mention before we test this actually assisted in the development of the Super SD System 3, this unit. It came from Terra Onion. So yeah, this is one that died, obviously it's been used so much, it's had so much use over its life. And it could be a thermal thing, this is the thing, important, talking about the voltages you stick into this, if you put like a 10, 11, 12 volt power supply in there, the heat sink's going to dissipate, it's going to dump a lot more heat into the board. So it could be one of those, but it's had a lot of use, this system, over its life. So that's why typically these things fail. Nothing lasts forever, second law of thermodynamics, entropy and all that. yeah, over a period of time, you know, with heat and use, things do eventually die. There's an argument there to say, you know, I wonder if you could get small heat sinks onto some of those chips there. Certainly the HUC 6270. I've not seen a single PC engine with a failed CPU. Yeah. So we're all connected up. I'll point you at the screen. So I'll switch it on. And fingers crossed, yes, excellent. So, yeah, all sorted after doing all that work. Let's see if we can load something. I think that's right, of a silhouette there, the character. Can't quite remember now. You got me wondering whether that silhouette problem's come back again. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just a coincidence. Yeah, sweet. Yeah, I think this is definitely the best version of Rainbow Islands. Even better than the Amiga version. So looking at the schematics here for the HUC 6270, if I just turn the camera to the right a little bit, you can see we've got the VRAMs here. These connect via the connections here to the address bus and the data bus. I did talk and run through some of this stuff actually in some of the earlier repair videos about how some of this stuff hangs together and how it works. But I thought it'd be useful to try and understand which connection on here might have caused the issue with the palette thing. You know, we had like a black border and sprites were like silhouettes. We had like a black, like there was no palette on sprites and things. So I mean, if you look at the connections here, these address lines, I think A0, A1, D0 through to D15. Yeah, because it's 16-bit. This the graphics chip on this 16-bit. Chip select, WR's that right. Yeah, RD read, I think. Vertical sync, horizontal sync, 816 CK, RST, that's reset. The video data bus, sorry, I'm just off here. Video data bus there, goes to the DAC. So we know, I don't think we'll have had a problem with that, wouldn't have had a display. So you can rule out all of those. You can rule out probably all of the address lines, I would think. You could probably rule out, yeah, I'm sure you could rule out all the address lines, all the data lines on this, which just leaves control signals, you know, these chip selects, the right pin there, the read, vertical sync, horizontal sync. I think if there was a problem there, we'd have an issue. I don't think the display would be right at all, so I think you could rule out vertical sync and horizontal sync. You've got this 816 CK, so it could be one of those two. I don't think it's going to be one of these here, the read and write pins. I seriously doubt. I think, again, we wouldn't have a display at all, I think, if none of those were working. Same with the chip select. And then all you've got left is video data connections here. Those ones there are VSS, they're the ground. Could have had a missing ground maybe. That's possible, I guess, but unlikely. Interestingly enough, that 816 connection seems to be tied to VDD actually, so you could probably rule that out. Actually, it looks like you're just going to have a constant 5 volt. Well, maybe not. If there was no connection to it and it's not being fed 5 volts, yeah, that could be an issue. What else have you got? There's a couple of connections down here. These are the final two that. Well, there's a couple more actually. I'll show you in a sec. Yeah, so SBBG. Is that something to do with background? That maybe that's the issue. Could have been that signal there on pin 28. SPBG. No idea what that is. And DISP doesn't seem to go anywhere. And then a couple down here. IRQ busy. Could be one of those maybe. Maybe the IRQ's used something to do with changing the palette or something. So yeah, we could have been lacking the IRQ. I mean, other than that, you've just got connections to the SRAMs here. You know, your read and write pins, your data bus, your address bus. you know, when I first looked at this, I said, oh, maybe it's a VRAM issue, and with that palette issue there, it could be one of the VRAMs. In some systems, yeah, because some systems, you might have a dedicated palette RAM chip. You know, one of these chips could be used just for the palette, the other one for the sprites. But I think the way the graphics are done on the PC Engine, I don't think that's the case. I think the colour and sprite information is contained, you know, in the same place. I don't think they're separated. They could be. I don't think they are. It would have been one of these down here, or one of the ones up here. So I'll stick the label on the underneath of the front here. Since this came from Terra Onion, it was used, to my knowledge, to help test the Super SD System 3's Terra Onion Probador de hardware. So yeah, a tester of hardware. That was what this was used for. So hopefully you found that interesting. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.